Good evening, and welcome to the Fortean Slip, episode 56. I was going to go skiing in the Ural Mountains, but I decided to pass.
I like that one.
Yeah, I thought you would. It's subtle.
Yeah, not bad.
I can't always just pull my dick out and shove it in everybody's face.
You would if you could, though.
You gotta be subtle sometimes, Steve.
A little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to go back and take a look at I don't know how the fuck it's pronounced, the Dyatlov, whatever the fuck it is, pass incident. Dyatlov pass incident. Some people think some weird shit went on there. Was it the Discovery Channel that did the Russian Yeti?
Discovery or History, I can't remember which one. I did not watch it. They pulled those Yeti photos out of their ass, and I knew that before the show ever hit, so I decided to pass.
You decided to pass on that one?
Yeah, I took the Dyatlov pass on that one.
Yeah. So Matt and I had done a show on that. The funny thing about that was we did the show on that TV show, and neither one of us saw the fucking show.
But I'm pretty sure you were probably damn near accurate on it.
Well, yeah, that all that stuff is kind of, it's very suggestive.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that we said, that it was just going to be, they were going to, a lot of camera cuts, they were going to make a lot of suggestive stuff, they were going to show a photograph, you know. It was all just going to point in one direction.
And in the end, of course, they never found any evidence that, you know, a Yeti was ever in the area.
Right. But, hey, it is a very interesting, quote-unquote, incident.
Well, it was an incident. I mean...
Yeah, it's definitely an incident when, 9 people die, and there's no... what was it? They said that they just died of extreme natural causes or something?
A compelling
force of nature.
A compelling something, yeah, something of that nature. I can't remember the exact term, but it was a compelling force, something like that.
Yeah.
Which left open to interpretation, and that's why we have all these different theories going around today.
Right. And we're pulling a lot of the information from the wiki, and we know that some of the information on the wiki is incorrect, and we were trying to find correct information before the show.
I did find quite a bit of correct information from other websites other than the wiki, but it's not easy to find because everybody wants their fingers in, because it is a mystery. Nobody really knows what the cause of these people leaving their tents and all this shit. Nobody really knows. So right now, even to this day, and this happened in 1959, even to this day, we really don't know what caused them to, do what they did.
Right.
Oh, unknown compelling force. That's what it was called.
Right. And they've even gone so far, there's a theory on the wiki that a form of St. Elmo's fire may have caused what happened to them.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that part of it, but...
You didn't read that one?
Oh, here it is. Yeah, I'm here. A new theory suggests that ski hikers were chased from the tent and killed by atmospheric electricity.
Right.
That's interesting.
It's an interesting fucking theory.
Yeah. Others are, like, obviously the Russian Yeti show that a Bigfoot killed them all. UFOs, government test crafts, weapons testing, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and then there's the avalanche theory. which a lot of people try to push.
Yeah, I'm not sold on the avalanche theory, only because they could still see footprints in certain places, and the tent it just didn't look like an avalanche, you know.
Yeah,
There's a new theory, though, I was telling you about before the show. Infrasound is one of the newer theories. Now, what they say happened there, and this is my favorite theory so far, only because it sounds the most plausible to me, even though it sounds ridiculous, but there was some sort of continuous wind event, they say, and maybe even like a small tornado. And during those wind events, a lot of times they create infrasound, and infrasound has results on people that can make them do weird things. A lot of the Bigfoot people talk about infrasound, and Bigfoots have that ability, or elephants have that ability. It'll scare away their prey and shit like that. Well, this theory says that they didn't know what was going on, but it made them nuts, and they ran out of their tents, and that's why the tents were cut from the inside and all that stuff. So it was like a vortex or something. I don't know. But I like that theory because it's new and it's interesting and plausible.
I mean,
I suppose
it's
the
an
St.
interesting,
Elmo's fire one is too.
it's an interesting theory. Um, However, how do you account for um, the damage done to the people? The injuries. If it was
Well,
if it was infrasound, like, I mean,
infrasound is only what made them leave the tents in the first place, according to this theory.
okay,
The injuries that happened to them, like a couple of them had skull fractures and things like that, probably resulted from falls or things like that after they left the tents, because either they got lost or something. I don't know what really. At least nobody knows what really happened. I mean, the the lady had no tongue when they found her, and I think her eyes were gone. But that could be explained by predators.
right? That could have been a post-mortem injury.
Yeah,
Um,
predators will go for soft tissue before they'll go for anything else. So a tongue is one of the first things they're going to go for.
yeah, 6 of the group members died of hypothermia, 3 from fatal injuries. Those fatal injuries, they say, could not have been caused by a human being because the force of the blows was too strong and no soft
Right,
tissue had been damaged.
right, but it could have been caused by, let's say, a fall and hitting your head on a rock or something like
Correct.
that. Right.
And now, was the radioactive contamination, is that factual?
That is factual. They did find radioactive contamination. The levels are in dispute, how much.
Right.
But most of these people were from some college, polytechnical institute or whatever, and they would have been exposed to some sort of radiation at whatever they were doing at the school. So that could have been from before they were ever out there,
Right.
because there's no evidence that anything out there. I don't think they found it, like in their tents or anything like that, just on the people's bodies.
Right.
So that was likely caused by something that they were exposed to, because I don't think they all were found with radiation, just the students.
Hmm.
But I'm not positive, so don't quote me on that.
Right. And according to the facts, they all left the campsite of their own accord and on foot.
Right. And some of them had, no shoes or whatever, and they had been having no shoes. It wasn't just that, okay, this guy died, so let's take his shoes. They left the tent with no shoes, and like the infrasound theory or even the avalanche theory could account for that, because if you think you're about to die in an avalanche, you're just going to get the fuck out of there,
Yeah, yeah, I
So
mean, that's a good point.
you're not going to put your shoes on. So I mean, obviously some of them there was 2 guys I think they found just in their underwear. But I don't know that they know who died first or whatever. So if I'm out in the cold and this guy's dead and I'm fucking cold, I'm stealing his clothes, man. You know?
Yeah,
So
I don't know. Seems seems a little weird.
the thing is that we still don't know exactly what caused them to leave the tents in the first place, and
R-
that's where the mystery really
Right, because
comes in.
it could be a bunch of different things that could have
Right.
caused them to leave the tent, and why, cuz okay, so yeah, the let's say it was a an avalanche that came down. All right. Well, if they were in the tent, it seems to me like the avalanche would have, if they had to cut their way out of the back, so why were they leaving with no, wouldn't they have grabbed something for clothes?
You would think so, but if you, I don't know. I have never been in a situation where my life was in danger, or at least I perceived that my life was in danger, so I don't know.
I just think if
But
they're cutting their way out of the back of a tent, if they're in the tent, their clothes are probably going to be in the tent.
you would think so, yeah, and you would think, at least try to grab my shoes because that's the one thing that I'm gonna need for sure
Really
in the
fucking
snow like
need in
that.
the snow.
Right, but most of them didn't have. I mean, some of them were in socks. Some had no shoes. Some had one shoe. I mean, they were in various stages of dress when they left these tents. So, what made them leave the tents? I mean, they would have been safe in the tents, you would think, unless it was some really, I don't know. That's where I kind of like the infrasound theory because if it's something that's going to affect your mind, you're going to have you're not going to think straight. So, I mean, they were all healthy when they left the tent. I mean, they weren't like suffering from hypothermia at that time. So, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's a pretty fucked up situation, and like you were saying, until we know what made them leave the tent, it allows for the mystery to just purvey itself and to continue. Because
hmm
up as far as we know right now, we don't know. Nobody knows. And those pictures, that fucking Russian Yeti picture there, that wasn't from that incident, right? Correct?
Well, nobody really knows, but nobody's ever seen it before, and they only showed a portion of the picture on that show. So, the thinking is that it's probably not something that even came from them. It might be a picture from that time period, but this guy who was the researcher in that show is the only one who's found it and all that.
Yeah,
So nobody really knows where that photo came from.
and that's yeah, that just adds to the mystery. And unless it's a fact, it's bullshit. I mean, unless we know it's fact,
Right.
how can
They
we?
did. They did, in fact, say something to the effect that now we know that the snow beast is real. But in fact, what really happened was that was a tongue-in-cheek thing, and it happened several days before they died and all this, and they never mentioned it again. So they were actually referring to themselves. They were the snow beast in that when they said that. So when that documentary used that, they kind of cut half of the statement out.
They twisted it around.
Right.
Yeah, it's oh god, I hate it when that gets done with like interviews and they cut out
Right.
to make people look like shit when they, explain themselves and it makes complete sense. Yeah, oh god. Fucking people. But anyway, yeah.
It, it, I,
I can't I myself can't wrap my head around it being just an avalanche.
well, and avalanches leave telltale marks, and the fact that most of those telltale marks of an avalanche weren't there probably means it wasn't an avalanche. Although one theory says that it's possible they thought there was going to be an avalanche, but that area is not prone to that sort of thing, and I mean, people have hiked there for centuries before, still go to that area, and there's never been an avalanche in the area. So But these people might not have known that, and for some reason they might have thought that an avalanche was coming, but there's no evidence that one actually happened. So
I still,
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know that I buy it. I don't know that I buy it. And I know that people that I've read that, you know, despite that it says that it's not prone to avalanches, that where they were camping on the side of the mountain, it's very, very possible, and there was snow the night in question.
Right.
So, and they're disturbing the snowpack by being there. So yeah,
True.
all of that is very possible. I'm just saying that I personally don't buy it. I don't know that I buy that it was a fucking Russian Yeti or
I know I don't
UFOs.
buy it was a Russian Yeti, and the reason I don't buy it was a Russian Yeti is because, at least from now, I read some things about the History Channel show, or whatever network carried it. I read some things about that, and the guy made half the shit up. I mean, it's pretty.
Well,
It was
I
Discovery
think
Channel, by the
if
way.
they found footprints of the people leaving the fucking area, right?
And yes, and all the footprints could be attributed to the people, not to some unknown,
Right. So there's
Yeti bear.
no footprints of any other fucking thing around. So yeah,
Part of the show, the Discovery Channel show, and it was the Discovery Channel, I'm saying now, had one of the original Manzi people who went up to help with the investigation because they knew the area, so they took some of the Manzi tribal people up there with them.
yeah, and
He
they
claimed,
actually tried to help out quite a bit to help find
right,
these. Well, because they were young, they were like kids, right? They were college kids.
college kids. There was one older guy who was like a ski instructor, and he went just to get more. I guess in Russia you get points for the more times you go out and lead people on these expeditions and things like that. So that's the reason he was there. And
It's
then,
like your Boy
not
Scout
sure,
merit badge.
basically, but for it helps your job basically. But anyway, so
Steve's fucking Boy Scout leader touched him, so like he had a fucking like the fucking Chewbacca bandolier double wrapped with fucking.
I was never a Boy Scout, Chris.
You lie.
I was in a group that was a lot like Boy Scouts, but it was not Boy Scouts.
They just did away
But
with the
anyway,
Boy Scout part and went right to the touching.
no, that's not what happened. Anyway, I wanted to touch on that Manzi thing because the one guy that they interviewed in that Russian Yeti thing was one of the original Manzi trackers that helped. And he said, and he's the only one who said that he saw some footprints that may have been from the Yeti. But I mean, that's something that he never said in the beginning during the official investigation, and only something he's ever said on the Discovery Channel show, somewhat 50 some years later, 60 years later, whatever it is now. So yeah, that's where I think, I just don't buy the Yeti theory at all.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a stretch. It's an absolute stretch.
Or
If
UFOs or
there,
anything
and
like
now if
that.
there were big ass fucking footprints there, and maybe some other compelling evidence, maybe we could take that stretch. But there's nothing.
Right. There's nothing for saying a Yeti did it. There's really nothing. There's no evidence pointing to any of the other kind of crazy theories like UFOs either. No real evidence pointing to government tests of missiles or anything like that. I mean, their skin had turned colors. The last victims that they found, because they didn't find them all at the same time.
Right.
So the last victims they found really had like an orange tint to them, but if you look into it further, all that is it's natural. People will change color when they're dead. So, and some of them in that type of condition will turn orangish. have an orangish tint. But people have been looking at the photos, and some of them have taken like a, after time, black and white photos sometimes can turn to almost like a sepia tone,
Mm-hmm.
like the older photos.
Yeah.
Well, that brought out the orange even more because sepia tone has like an orangish tint to it anyway. So if you're looking at the old photos, it looks even worse than it really was. So
Right.
there was theories that their hair had all turned silver. Well, that's not true. You know. So
I always love those stories. Yeah, that guy was in an accident, and then the next day his hair was completely white. Bullshit.
but now
Fucking
I don't.
bullshit.
I mean, I don't think we're ever going to know exactly the cause of it. I mean, it happened in 1959, unless, of course, the exact circumstances happen
It's
again.
always gonna. I think it's always gonna be a mystery. I think this is gonna be one of those things that's always going to remain a mystery. 9 people died on a mountain. We don't really know why. All we can tell you is that 3 of them died from fatal injuries to their bodies, and the other 6 died of hypothermia. And they
Well,
fucking
there,
cut themselves out of their tent from the inside and
right.
went a fucking trekking in the snow, most of them without much on.
Even the fatal injuries may not be quite the case either. The one guy who had a skull fracture, they said that it was likely not fatal. Now, it may have led to him dying because he had a skull fracture and he's out in the fucking cold,
Right.
but it wasn't the fatal injury that they want some of these conspiracy theorists want you to think it was. So,
Uh,
but there was no, outer injuries. There was no bruises on the skin and all that stuff. So it wasn't like something attacked them.
yeah, I, I think you're going to find a lot of people are going to use this incident for sensationalism
Yeah.
and try to drum it up as something else. I, it's a mystery. It's just a fucking mystery.
And unfortunately for the families, because some of the families of these people are still around, this wasn't all that long ago, 1959. I mean, it was well before me and you, but the children of some of these people are probably still around, or the, brothers and sisters or whatever.
Right.
And for those people, all this conspiracy bullshit, kind of, I don't know that I would want that to happen to me. Somebody that I know dies in a weird manner, and then people all of a sudden start saying that UFOs got him, or
The fucking Russian Yeti got him,
Yeti
or
tore him apart, shit like
infrasound.
that.
You got fucking Steve saying, I think it was infrasound. Yeah, I'm pretty
Well, the
sure. You
infrasound
would
theory, and
too,
I
because you
haven't.
fucking hear everything. You don't fucking see a goddamn thing. You hear everything.
I probably didn't state the infrasound theory as good as I should have, but weather events can cause infrasound, and
Ah.
and so infrasound can make people do things that are weird because you're hearing it, but you're not hearing it. So something's going on in your brain, and it can cause you to, run out of your tent naked after cutting a hole in it in the middle of the snow in a mountain. So it is as plausible as any other theory. You know.
I got you. I'm with you.
So,
I'm with
but
you.
I like it because it's different, and it's a natural thing. And my guess is whatever happened here is completely natural, even though it is mysterious.
Uh huh. Speaking of completely natural things, Steve. Last week on the show,
Uh-oh.
yeah. Well, I supposedly I've scarred you for life with
I heard that
tales
I need therapy,
with
and
tales of my masturbation late night sessions
if
on.
if you've scarred me for life talking about your masturbatory rages, Why are you talking about it again?
Because it, you know, um, so it was asked of me after I'd brought this up on the air, what I got out of it, what the payoff was, and I said, well, you come really good, and then you have tons of shame because you just sat in front of the computer for 8 hours jacking your dick until it was nothing like but warm fucking clay in your hand.
We just did a serious show on the Dyatlov Pass and 9 people dying, and we end it with a masturbatory rage. I love it.
Hey, that's what I'm here for, Steve.
Well, we didn't end the show yet. But
No.
no,
I had to bring it up though because it was brought to my attention, and I thought I should
I'm not
share
scarred
it
for
with you.
life. I'm not scarred for life. I, in fact, have, masturbated in my life.
No,
and so
I thought you only heard masturbation.
it's like an infrasound thing. So no, I'm not scarred for life. I understand it's a natural occurrence.
No, believe me,
And
that was
8 hours
completely
might-
that was completely unnatural
8 hours might be a stretch.
in
and a
every
stretch, and a
sense of the
stretch.
fucking word. It was unnatural.
But no, I'm not scarred for life. So at least that's what my therapist tells me.
Don't you have some fucking news?
I don't think I have any fucking news.
Just plain news.
Just regular news. I like this one from the courier.co.uk. This one's about, it's not about masturbation. It's about, oh, geez, I lost it. I'm starting out on a good foot. It's all your talk and, put me into therapy and all that bullshit. It's just getting to me, Chris. A mass grave has been discovered in Tunbridge Wells. I don't know where that's at, but I'm assuming it's in the UK somewhere. Next time you sit on a rug in Calvary grounds in Tunbridge, because I do that a lot, you could be perched upon a plague pit. A trio of scientists claim to have made the gory discovery after exploring the popular town center park. They tested a secluded part of the park, an area behind buildings on Crescent Road, with a technique known as dowsing, and claimed to have found a mass burial site. Visitors to the park may have seen a group of men wandering slowly over the grassy bank holding rods in their outstretched hands last Tuesday. Can you imagine some guys walking around with rods?
Yes, I can, actually.
Not that kind of rod. One of the researchers, Don Hawking from Herefordshire, told the Courier, we found lots of grave sites, and we found one mass grave or plague pit. This is a place where the bodies of those who died of the plague were dumped. I am not sure what plague it was, but the main plague was about 1660. It's not very surprising. There must have been a lot around. The plague took out half the population. The group told the Courier they found another exciting discovery. Mr. Hawking said, "We found where there would have been a skirmish between Normans and Saxons, and we found the presence of old walls. I don't know what the wall would have been about. It could have been encircling a graveyard." Asked what the group would now do with the information, he said, it's mostly for our own interest. We don't dig archaeological.
No, we just walk around with fucking rods in our hands. That's what we do.
We don't dig. Archaeologists like digging. We're not archaeologists. We're always trying to refine the science aspect because it's a scientific thing, although not universally regarded as such. We had a very successful day. The men said that they held rods and walked slowly around the area, waiting for them to move when magnetic fields of chemicals were detected by their bodies. They said the movement of rods signifies what is underneath, which can be anything from human bones to wheel tracks. And the beauty of dowsing is no digging is required, said Mr. Hawking. I think, Chris, that the beauty of dowsing is that he can say that whatever he wants to say is under the fucking ground, and, they don't have to dig it up to prove it. Apparently, the body is sensitive to magnetic fields, and the kinds of they responded to in this regard are called diamagnetic fields, and paramagnetic fields. And the body responds autonomously to the presence of these fields, and particularly to the discontinuities in fields, where you get a step or a change in direction or a change in magnitude. We are the equipment. The human body is the equipment, and it responds, and we use something to indicate that the body has responded. And in our case, we tend to use rods, which swing when the body responds to the fields. Then we mark what we have found and go through the whole process, marking everything as we go.
That's right.
And
After we come, we know where everything is. We hold the rod, it fucking shoots a load, and then we know where the shit is.
Yeah, because then you can see it.
Yeah, I got it.
In our next story, this one's from CNN, actually. This woman, she was 91 years old, and she died in Poland. And she was declared dead on November 6th and sent to a funeral home, only to wake up 11 hours later in cold storage.
Is this supposed to be a fucking Polish joke?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
This is reported by CNN's Polish affiliate, TVN. Now she's home and doing fine. The doctor went to the home of Janina Kolkowitz. Hey, I think I got that one right.
Maybe.
In the town of Ostrolubelski.
Ostrolubowski? The Big Lebowski?
Something, yeah, I think so. On November 6th, after her family said she stopped breathing, I checked the pulse on the forearm artery, carotid artery. You know, I was doing so good.
Well,
let me start over.
You were doing so well.
Yeah, you're right. I checked the pulse on the forearm artery, carotid artery also, the doctor told TVN. I listened to the heart, to the breathing. I also examined the pupils. There were no reflexes. Typical symptoms of death. Yeah, I'd say so. The doctor, I didn't know death had
She
symptoms.
was dead.
The doctor signed the death certificate, and her family began planning services. The funeral home called. Authorities were trying to find out what happened. We are investigating whether the doctor exposed the woman to imminent danger or loss of life, as the lady was moved to a funeral home and kept in cold storage. That's just not even funny.
What the fuck are we fucking doing tonight?
I had to get a sip of coffee before I read the next one, because disclosure is coming, Chris, and it's in the form of photographs, apparently. From the Examiner.com, this researcher of UFOs claims to have smoking gun evidence, photos that prove aliens exist. A prominent UFO researcher and an author made an astounding claim this week at an American university in Washington, D.C. He claimed to have the ultimate smoking gun concerning the existence of aliens. Photographic evidence.
That's a real smoking gun, by God, a photograph. Christ.
They usually are. Open Minds reported November 13th that Tom Carey, best known for his work on the Roswell incident, told the audience that he was in possession of Kodachrome slides from 1947 that showed an alien in the process of being dissected. It's original 1947 images, Carey said, and it shows an alien who's been partially dissected lying in a case. He said the research was promising in that a Kodak film historian had looked at the slides and found them to be authentic. The famed Roswell UFO crash incident allegedly occurred in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico. It is considered a glaring example of governmental cover-up. Witnesses to the Roswell incident who allegedly saw the reported UFO, the crash debris, and the alien bodies were contradicted, discounted, and discredited by the U.S. military. Reports persist that not only did a UFO crash at Roswell, but alien bodies were recovered from the crash site as well. He went on to describe the He went on to describe the alien as being 3.5 to 4 feet tall. The head is almost insect-like. The head has been severed, and there's been a partial autopsy. The innards have been removed, and we believe the cadaver has been embalmed, at least at the time the picture was taken. But as with most extraordinary claims, there was an ordinary problem. Tom Carey said he did not have the photo with him. Of course he didn't.
That's right. When I've got photos that fucking have absolute proof, I never have them with me, Steve. Never bring them. I just talk about them and say, hey, guess what I got? I got some fucking photos.
Even if he produces a photo, he will have difficulty proving its authenticity without an actual extraterrestrial body. He didn't help his case when he stated that the Kodachrome slides came from a Texas couple and noted that the wife was a Texas lawyer that they thought was involved in intelligence in World War II. Such vagueness with the provenance of the photographic evidence does not bode well for the content. The original write-up of the American University presentation of UFO research didn't put much stock in Carey's claim. The most riveting presentation of the night came from a U.S. Air Force retired Colonel Charles Halt. We just talked about Charles Halt the other night, Chris. He was one of the witnesses to the famous series of UFO sightings in the Rendlesham Forest incident.
Ah.
Yeah, Charles Halt.
Ah.
He was the deputy base commander or something like that. I don't know. And fellow UFO researcher and panelist Leslie Kean, author of the acclaimed bestseller UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record, went on the record herself. Via Facebook, she wrote, with regard to the alien photo, I had nothing to do with the Roswell part, just want to make that clear. Sounds like somebody's covering their ass already. Tom Carey's is the second claim this month regarding proof of aliens. We talked about this one too. Area 51 scientist Boyd Bushman left what is being labeled as a deathbed confession in which he speaks on video about aliens working with him in Area 51 and how several of them now work for the federal government. Continuing the theme in this article, we had no hard evidence to support his claim.
Are you a lizard person, Steve? I'm all in. Lizard people. Fucking lizard aliens, they're taking over. You're a lizard person.
Well, you know, I tend to believe some of these government people, but the one person that I believe the most, because he's just above everyone else in my book, is Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd believes in UFOs, so I'm all into.
Wow.
No, he does. He's got some. He's got some photographs.
Steve, you don't say. No, you don't say. Listen, I mean, I'm a fucking asshole, and like I was just making a jackass point, but you don't say
I'm
like.
not. Dan Aykroyd.
You're fucking seriously in because of Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd has some seriously cool evidence. He's got photos that are strangely similar to Boyd Bushman's photos. Almost the same thing. Of the toy. I do like Dan Aykroyd. I do believe in you.
This has been episode 56 of the Fortean Slip. I still have a cold.
Can we put that masturbation thing to rest now?
No.
Okay. Just wondering.
Must go on. If you like this fucking horrendous train wreck of a fucking show, hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment.
I don't think it was a train wreck at all.
It's always a fucking
maybe
train wreck.
The end of it. The news usually is. The one part of the show, I have one job.
And you always fuck it up.